But we were, right?
Now you're good. Okay.
So ready to begin?
Yeah. Okay. The Fabrengen is going to continue over here on this side over here. No, they're moving there. We're breaking down those tables anyway.
The way he did it here,
coming on this
he
side.
did it for very many guys for a great deal, and he spent 30 grand on it.
Oh yeah.
Doing the wrap, doing the first year of insurance, but there's a lot of upkeep also. I'm telling you, when you get the tank, you have to fulfill you. I'm expecting my class plus.
I mentioned earlier in regards to the insights that the Rabbi gave Benegea to Yutas Kislev, and we're on live. That the Rabbi gave for Yutas Kislev. First one being the Alter Rebbe himself. He spoke about the union of the Yutas Kislev, that it's like Yom Kippur. And in addition to that, another union which also makes the attest to that is that Chassidim prepared a Megillah Yutas Kislev.
Stay in touch with Mitzvah.
They prepared a Megillah for Yutas Kislev, and they needed Alter Rebbe should consent to it, but Alter Rebbe did not want to accept it. And instead, the Alter Rebbe made a statement that this is a day where Yidden Bechlal, the Yom Tov will be a steady Yom Tov by the Jewish nation, and it will be a day which Hashem's name will be glorified and sanctified, and it will be a day which thousands of Jewish hearts will be inspired with Shuvah and Aveda Shebelev. And the Alter Rebbe continues, because this is something that's engraved in the hearts of people above, of Yidden above, and it's written in the hearts of Yidden in this physical world. This is basically what the Alter Rebbe stated. The Melaveh, we see from here also the idea of tshuva. So the Alter Rebbe mentioned Yutas Kislev is compared to Yom Kippur, and in addition to that, that there needs to be some Aveda, an Aveda of a Yid, awakening to tshuva. As mentioned, the Mittel Rebbe goes further than that. The Mittel Rebbe carries it that this is the Geula of Yutas Kislev, is a Geula which reflects the upcoming redemption. The upcoming redemption, which is the utmost, the highest standard of Geula, and this is basically connected with Chassidus, Pnimius HaTorah. So Tzedek, as mentioned, refers to it as Simchas Torah. The Rebbe Marash says there needs to be a preparation. The preparation are the 3 months preparing for Yutas Kislev. The Rebbe Rashab refers to it as Rosh Hashanah L'Chassidus. The Friedrich Rebbe refers to it actually as Chag HaChagim, the Yom Tov of Yom Tov. And he writes the letter that this is a time that people should make resolutions in Nigla Chassidus and take upon oneself the yoke of Hashem's kingdom. And in addition to that, Friedrich Rebbe cautions at the end of the letter, writing, be careful, be very careful with this day. Yizaru me'ed b'yom hazeh. By the Rebbe gives another dimension to Yutas Kislev, that there are the 10 days, which is the union of Gmar Simateva. When we think into all the different insights, it's not just avert, another word, another nice title for Yutas Kislev. One calls it Yom Kippur, the Alter Rebbe calls it Yom Kippur, Tzemach Tzedek calls it Simchas Torah, Rebbe Rashab calls it Rosh Hashanah. But basically, each one in his generation delivered a special message for Chassidim then. And as the Rebbe said, the Lashon Yutas Kislev is a Yom Tov, not only for Chassidim, but also for those who are not as of yet Chassidim. The first union is The Alter Rebbe refers to it as it is an auspicious day, a holy day, a day which is considered Achas Bashana, Yom Kippur. The Achas Bashana, Chassidus explains, is connected with Yechidah Shebenefesh. And that is exactly what Chassidus is. Chassidus is the union of Yechidah Shebenefesh, and therefore when it comes to Achas Bashana, Yom Kippur is the union of Yechidah, as we see that there are 5 tefillas, 5 different tefillas that are made on Yom Kippur, Ma'ariv, Shachris, Musaf, Mincha, Nila. They correspond, they reflect the 5 levels of the Neshama. And the Melaveh, the Alter Rebbe says that Yechid chooses the word Yechid, Yom Kippur, and he says that he has sanctified the day as Yom Kippur. And he says the person only has to ask. They have to request. It won't happen on its own. The reason is Mepashtis. The Alter Rebbe is Chabad. Chabad demands there should be something done on a person's own initiative. The Rebbe became accepted in the Sios. Right after the Maimon, everybody figured, the Rebbe said a Maimon, Echsidim said Shechayonu, and after the Maimon, the Rebbe said, It's the Hertzacham Yid. Now, listen to me, Yid, which was a very unusual expression. What was the point? The point was that between the lines it is, you have a Rebbe, you waited a year, finally you got a Maimon, it means the Nesios, but now I'll tell you what my message is. The Rebbe says this is the difference between Chabad and other Chassidus. By other Chassidus, it is Tzadik B'Manosa Yechaya. He sustains, he takes care of the Chassidim. The only thing that they need is, it's a Maimon Amuzga, the Rebbe didn't mention it, but basically they need Shirayim, need a little Shtupas, a Chabis on the head, a Chabis Teira, and that's it, and they're taken care of. By Chabad, the Rebbe says there is Tzadik B'Manosa Yechaya. And then the Rebbe continues. Everyone has 248 organs, 365 veins. Therefore, everyone needs to do on their own. And the Rebbe says, I am not turning down someone who needs help. The Rebbe says, but a person has to exert himself on his own. This is connected also with a story that's told in a year to the Rebbe, that they once wrote into the Rebbe. It was either a posting or something that they wrote to the Rebbe that characterizing what is Lubavitch. So they wrote like this: Lubavitch, you have miracles, and in Lubavitch you have also other inyan. So the Rebbe took that first title, he put it down on the bottom. It says, first, there is in Lubavitch we learn and daven. If we need miracles, we have it also. But this is basically not to jump on the miracles, because this is not Seder of Chabad. And this is what the Alter Rebbe says. The Alter Rebbe says a person has to ask. It's the Alter Rebbe sanctified the day, but there needs to be something. The Rebbe would give lekach many times. We heard it a few times that the Rebbe asked someone standing in line, nobody would speak to the Rebbe, they just extended the hand. So the Rebbe said, you have to ask. Maybe the person said, ich bet, I'm requesting. The Rebbe gave him lekach. The union of the initiative on the Rebbe, on the Rebbe's, on the Chassid part. The Mitzvah the Rebbe comes and brings out a deeper insight into the union of Yutas Kislev, that Yutas Kislev is a day which is basically reflecting the upcoming redemption. Shleimus of P'diyah B'Shalom. It's redeeming and not redeeming Mikrov, which Mikrov means war, but it means P'diyah B'Shalom means Pashit, a redemption in the utmost peaceful way, peaceful manner, which this is the Shleimus of P'diyah. And then comes the Tzemach Tzedek and said that Yutas Kislev has another dimension. It's the dimension of Simchas Torah. What is the Pirush of that? The Pirush of that is Simchas Torah is meaning rejoicing. The Mela, the first thing is that Yutas Kislev is in a day of rejoicing.
After the
It looks from it has the qualities of each thing, and everything, as we'll mention further. Simchas Torah number 1 is the union of Simcha. That's the union of Yutas Kislev. But in addition to that, what is the union of Simchas Torah? Simchas Torah is we are dancing with a Sefer Torah, a closed Sefer Torah. So the Rabbi asked the question right in the beginning of the in the early years, in terms of days, 60 years ago. The Rabbi says, what's this point of dancing with a closed Sefer Torah? We're rejoicing with Torah, we're appreciating Torah. We should be sitting down and learning. The whole day is dancing. And dancing with a closed Sefer Torah, you don't even see what's in there. So the Rebbe said like this: Simchas Torah, we reveal that our appreciation of Torah is connected with the godliness in Torah. We are connecting that Torah is not just an intellectual subject. It is the godliness of Torah, Elokus in Torah. And Mamela, that's accomplished, that we reach through dancing, because dancing is something that the mind is not involved. And Mamela, a person can reach higher than limitations of mind. And in addition to that, he's connecting with the union of Torah. Then comes the Rebbe Marash, a later generation. Generations are getting lower. Rebbe Marash says there's a need of hachana, preparation. So basically, Tzemach Tzedek with the union of Simchas Torah it brings out 2 points. That you discuss of Simchas Torah is the union of rejoicing, and in addition to rejoicing, there is a union also that we are appreciating Torah mitzad the godliness of Torah, and that is basically what Chassidus teaches us. Chassidus teaches us that the union of Torah is not a intellectual subject, but it is basically a union which is chochmasei retzeines HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As the Alter Rebbe writes about it in Tanya, right near the beginning. Then comes the Rebbe Marash and says there's a need for preparation. It's a later generation, the Kanish Tamarai form, the Ayov and the Sukkah. You need a preparation. What is the preparation? 3 months. Why 3 months? The 3 months are basically, as mentioned, the union of Chabad, Chochma Bina Das. And every month he would enhance, bring a refinement in the Chochma Bina Das of a person. And the Friedrich Rebbe tells us in the Sikha in the late 40s that the Rebbe Rashab, when it came to Yutes Cheshvan, he said, I just finished now with Me'ach Habino and getting to Me'ach Hadas. So it's basically three Meichen, and this is a Maisa of a Chedesh each one. Refining Meichen is harder than refining the Midas. That's why the beater will be lost of love. And the Alter Rebbe writes in time that then comes the Rebbe Rashab. And the Rebbe Rashab says we should not look at the day that it's a single day and it has many different aspects, but we should look at the day that this is a day which is a general day that generates energy for the whole year. And that is basically what the union of Yutas Kislev is. It's a union of a Rosh Hashanah. Why is Rosh Hashanah referred to as Rosh Hashanah, not the beginning of the year? So the Mitzvah the Rebbe explains, because the union of Rosh Hashanah is compared to a head, in the same sense that the head consists of the energy of the whole body. Likewise, Rosh Hashanah is the highest of the whole year. And the Rebbe says, Mamela, also the value of time, that we should not waste time, but every spare moment to fulfill it, either with Tilim or other qualitative inyanim, is something that Rosh Hashanah is at a very high level. So the Rebbe once explains it in a very balabatish neif, connected with balabatish. The Rebbe explains that Rosh Hashanah is 2 days that consists of 53 weeks. 4 weeks, I don't know. When you divide Rosh Hashanah into 54 sections, happens that every hour of Rosh Hashanah is about a week. In 2 days, 48 is about more than a week in the person's time. which means that every hour in Rosh Hashanah is more than a week. That's a general time. We divide it into minutes. It's right that it's not just a minute or two. And therefore the Rebbe says a person should be careful with it, because it's a general time. So the Rebbe Rashab writes, B'negiyah to Yutas Kislev, that it is a day which is the beginning of Chassidus. It is a day which is a day which generates energy for the whole year. And if we look into the letter of the Rebbe Rashab, he expresses certain expressions he writes in the letter which remind us of Rosh Hashanah. The Inyan of Rosh Hashanah. He says, Lahoyer es Lubavitch, Lahoyer with the ayah means awakening the hearts. What is Rosh Hashanah? The Inyan of the Shofar. Uru Rishenim Nirdome mit Habnemat, Harudemaschem, and with the Havne Yoelam, this portion, a person should wake up. It's a wake-up call. That's the Inyan of Rosh Hashanah. It comes, and then the Rebbe Rashab implies more nikudas, like Malkah is a Chayna Shefres, like he reflects Rosh Hashanah in their Avodah. And this is basically the Inyan of Rosh Hashanah, a general day for the whole year. The Friedrich Rebbe, and a generation after that, sees that there is a need to stress another point, what Chassidus is. That Chassidus is, Yutas Kislev is Chag HaChagim. Chag HaChagim means the Yom Tov of Yom Tov. So the Rebbe explains in a letter, it doesn't mean that it is a Yom Tov amongst Yom Tov, but it is basically bringing out the basic principle of what Chassidus accomplished. The Rebbe said, what do we find by a Chag? Samachta b'chagecha. We find that a person rejoices. He rejoices with the Chag. What rejoices? What benefits from it? So it's basically what's benefiting is the body benefits. It's a whole Suda, Yom Tov, it's a Machta b'chagecha, everybody is part of it. In addition to that, there's an union of joy. So the Rebbe says this is the teachings of Chassidus. Chassidus teaches us these two ingredients. That number one, everything has to be with Simcha. And the second union is not to forget that the body is also part of our Avodas Hashem. That we need to include the body, that the body should also partake in Avodas Hashem. And the union of Simcha is the main ingredient, which is basically Simcha paired together. In addition to not to deprive the goof in any way, not to torture the goof with fasting, once a Maisa by Dollar, somebody came to the Rebbe and told the Rebbe that somebody was not feeling well and is constantly crying. So the Rebbe says, "Was halten in een weinen, soll halten in een lachen." Let him rejoice. Which is basically not just a therapeutic thing, it's a refuah, telling the person laugh. The word is Simcha is mamtik dina. Simcha sweetens the dina. The Melaveh, when the Rebbe said the Lashon Zola Lachen, that means Pasha say this is the real way to approach to cure oneself from the pain. The Rebbe wasn't just a psavort, this way, that way.
They're saying they can't hear.
So this is basically the Nikuda of the Friedrich Rebbe mentioning that it's Chag HaChagim. Chag HaChagim means basically it's the central point of all the Yom Tov. In the sense that it's joy and that the goof is also part of this whole thing. Then comes a generation later. The person, if he missed the boat, it's already after this of Shana. So the person is already asking the Rebbe, when is the Gmach Simateva? There is 10 days of repentance. He wants to jump up on the wagon, and he fell asleep during Rosh Hashanah. And Melaveh, he wants to know when is the Gmach Simateva. So the Rebbe said the Gmach Simateva is Chavtes Kislev, 10 days later. Like Rosh Hashanah has 10 days, same thing here also. And it's interesting because the Rebbe in the Yom Yom, I think it's a Chavtes Kislev, the Rebbe writes there what were the issues in the time of Hanukkah, and through repentance they accomplished the miracle of Hanukkah. Which means, and it's Erev Tshuva. It's the union of Erev Yom Kippur Kokim, Erev And the Melaveh, the Rebbe says the union of tshuva. So I'll call upon him, the Rebbe says there's a union of tshuva. Relationship with all the inyanim, but it's the Rebbe makes mention of tshuva that day. So b'chol eifel, what we see over here is that the Rabbeim gave us different aspects, insights when you get to the Yom Tov, and each one gives us a message. The first message is that it's a day like Yom Kippur, which means it is an auspicious day. An auspicious day that the Friedrich Rebbe hints to it, saying be very careful with this day because it's a holy day. Which is an expression that's used on the Yomim Niroyim, on the awesome days of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. The Mittel Rebbe says that it's connected directly with the upcoming redemption. And as Al Rebbe Taka said, that this will be a Yom Tov celebrated also after, it'll always be an eternal Yom Tov. So the Rebbe is medayik that means even Mashiach will come, there'll also be Yom Tov. The Pashtus, the Eibishter B'chazdei Al-Teib gave people a chance that those that did not merit to see light in their life up till now, since Mashiach will come, they'll realize what Yutas Kislev is also for them. And B'meila, that's when they'll jump on the wagon.
Talking about light.
Right, here. And the B'meila, then comes the Tzemach Tzedek. I said this is a time of rejoicing, and it is a time of appreciating Torah as we dance with the Sefer Torah as it is closed. It is wrapped, it is closed, because we're not thinking now about the intellectual aspect of Torah. We are thinking of Torah as it is Chachmasir Etzeni of the Eibishter. Kedusha, Heiligkeit. Then comes the union of the Reb Marash says, yeah, Boitziklech, there needs to be some kind of achona, initiative on the part of the person. Then comes the Rebbe Rashab and said this is a day which is not just a day in the year, it is a day that we take for the whole year. It is a general day, it's Rosh Hashanah. There's once a story, one of the Maskirim, secretaries came to the Rebbetzin, and the Rebbetzin asked, how was a certain Yom Tov? I think it was either Pesach or Tisha. So, I think it was Rabbi Klein. So he told the Rebbetzin, said, went through and passed through. So he didn't pass through. It was added. It's a new asset that we received, and the asset that we received is basically a new keach, a new Yom Tov. It's not on the calendar that like the old Yidden as they tear off the page. It is basically a new day, a new energy came. It's a market, and that's basically like Tishrei. Also, Yutas Kislev is Rishon HaChassidus. The Friedrich Rebbe makes the point that what is Chassidus and salvation, the two ingredients of the Rebbe writes, is the union of joy and the union making sure that the body, the goof, is also part of it. It's not like the way of Musar, other ways of schools of thought, that they stress the idea of depriving the physical aspects of a Yid, but basically fakert, union of Dafka, the union of the Guf, which is Begashmis, because Sof the Rebbe says when Mashiach will come, the Guf will give the energy to the Neshama. The Guf will give Chayes, and Neshama will receive from the Guf. And then comes the Rebbe and says, so Stockholm Farfaun, and a person could still connect, and that is basically the 10 days into Chanukah. The Rebbe says, will help him, as they say, B'negiyat Chassidim, the Chassidim don't postpone. So we shouldn't wait till Erev Yom Kippur, till the final seal, but when it comes in these 2 days, as they refer to, Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golus. Rebbe once said, Yutas Kislev and Chav Kislev are 2 days of Yom Tov, like Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golus. And likewise, Yud Beis Tammuz, also Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golus. So the Rebbe explains, why is it Taka? Why is it called, everything is in Golus. What's it, because this is more Golus? So the Rebbe says, because the reason that we have the second day Yutas Kislev is because there was a certain obstacle. There was a certain obstacle that the Rebbe couldn't get back home. And it was a union that resulted from a Golus. From a Yid who was in the matzav of Golus. I don't elaborate too much. Yud Beis Tammuz, the same thing. There was a certain holiday, and they couldn't release the Friedrich Rebbe on Yud Beis Tammuz, to release with a formal paper, so they waited till Yud Gimel Tammuz. So I'll call upon him, this is like an additional union. Now the Rebbe explains what is the union of Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golus. says that this is connected with the union of Vali Ere B'Seino. That Yidden were given a potential, Yidden Chutzlar were given a potential to sanctify an additional 24 hours of a weekday that it becomes a Yom Tov. And this is a keach that Yidden have in Chutzlar Dafka. I think the Alter Rebbe even mentions, when I've worked for Alter Rebbe also, the Asher Chedi, what reingeführt, etwas für den Yom Tov Sheni Sogolos, aber das ist noch gut. Bechol Eifen, Yom Tov Sheni, I think episode, 3 things if you remember. Okay, we denk nach einer Pilgrims now. It's done the ganze Tolle von that. Akopan im Drebische helfen, that we should take the Yom Tov, we should absorb it. From Rosh Hashanah, it should come down in all our organs, all our limbs, and all our veins, and it should push it. We should live with it. It's a new year. The Ayemim is exactly custom made for this year's Kviyos. Starts with the Kislev, and it goes on. It's a leap year. And Melaveh, I don't know how far it goes, but Akopanim is 383 days this year also, so Pashas is the same like that. So Melaveh, this gives us a chayas in the union of living with the Ayemim. Chayim.
Nog a chayas to learn the Masechta.
Ah, right.
Oh, Sanigan. Randall, Anigan.
It was a custom by one of the Eineklach of the Alter Rebbe that when it came to Yutas Kislev, so he would tell over the Kudus of what took place in Yutas Kislev, or probably more than the Kudus. And it says over there also that B'shas a person came in the middle, he started all over again. Not taking responsibility for that, but Akoponim, when you get to the Inyan of Yutas Kislev, the Rebbe mentions in the Rishima, which was not known to us, mamash to the last 30 years, that B'shas they came to take the Alter Rebbe, so the Alter Rebbe then disappeared. So the Alter Rebbe went, left from the back of the house. Nobody had any idea where he was, including also the Rebbetzin. No idea where he was. The officers asked the Rebbetzin, where is the Alter Rebbe? And she said she didn't know. They punched her in the face, they broke a tooth, and they put on the oil barrels around the city, they put it on fire, scared the people in the city, and then they left. Then the Alter Rebbe came back. They asked the Alter Rebbe what was the point of leaving. So as it's mentioned in the Sepurim, that the Alter Rebbe said that Chavim Ma'at Ad Yaver Zam, there's a inyan of waiting till the anger passes. Melaveh, the anger passed, he's back. And at that time, Rabbi Shmuel Munkes was one of the famous chassidim by the Alter Rebbe. He came into the house then. He had no idea what was going on. He fell in. Well, there's one time that he came in and he knocked on the door. And the Alter Rebbe said, "Who is it?" And he said, "Shmuel Munkes." And the Alter Rebbe said then that, if you're not going to leave, I'll call my goy. I'll call my goy pasha to get you out. It's like the Rebbe, my goy is stronger than your goy. Which is basically the even inclination. So the Rebbe, Dafke, that Sipur, the Rebbe takes the Maisa and the Rebbe explains it in a very interesting way. Because a person goes into a Yiddish house, it has to be a certain preparation. What are you coming in with? He's coming in and it's coming. Has to come into the Rebbe's house. The Meilin This was one occasion. Here it was, he fell in Punkt that night, and the Alter Rebbe said, Shmuel fell in Punkt Banach, he has no other time to come but at night. So he tells the Alter Rebbe, I didn't know that by a Rebbe there's night. So go. So the Alter Rebbe told him, you should know that he came to take me. So he told the Alter Rebbe, this is the famous word, that if you're a Rebbe, then nothing will hurt you. If you're not a Rebbe, how did you deprive thousands of people from physical, worldly pleasures? So here comes a word that we also didn't know till later, till the Rebbe's Rishimas. Interesting word, that the Alter Rebbe said, Sie du bist gerecht zu nit, weiß ich nit, aber geh gesund. If you're right or wrong, I don't know, but you can leave. You leave. Leave, and he left. The Alter Rebbe then turned to his sons, and he told his sons that they're coming to take him tomorrow, and that they should fast. The sons should fast. They don't fast. So Melaveh, he gave them a day before notice. No. The Pale Mamish, they came to take the Alter Rebbe, and they were traveling to Petersburg, and it was a Friday, some point it was Friday, noontime, the Alter Rebbe says, that's it, we're not traveling anymore. They looked on the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe says, I'll see it sein. Hill Mamish, they didn't listen, and the wheel broke, they replaced the wheel, a horse fell, so it accomplished even by them that there's something really significant happening here, which is beyond their understanding. So what happened was, they stopped there, but they had a problem, because the wagon was right in the middle of the way. He asked the Alter Rebbe permission if it can go to the side. So the Alter Rebbe said, very interesting expression, that this is one of 3 miracles that he managed to do in his life. Alter Rebbe did only 3 meifshim, I mean, you have to understand what it meant. But that's what the Alter Rebbe said. So what happened was that the wagon should, somehow the Alter Rebbe should accomplish. The wagon on its own moved to the side, and the Alter Rebbe stayed there all Shabbos. Today they say there's certain families in Lubavitch, I heard it was the Lubavitch family, others that know exactly where this is. From generations passed on traditionally, they know where the Alter Rebbe was, and like a big tree grew out there, and it's Pashat Mekuba by them. So this was something that happened by Shabbos. When the Alter Rebbe came to prison, you had to drive over, you had to travel with a boat over the water. So in certain stories it's mentioned that the Alter Rebbe had tears in his eyes. He was doubtful if he's going to come out of there. And was wondering, and then he came up with an idea. He's going to ask one of the officers, did anybody ever give the officers a gift before leaving? And they said, yeah. So the Alter Rebbe was relieved, felt a relief, and when the Beis Asurim, the Alter Rebbe was there 53 days. Amongst the inyanim that were happening there was this professor, a scholar who came in and asked the Alter Rebbe, "V'nigi certain inyan in Torah, Ayeka." The Alter Rebbe told him there's Rashi, and he said, I want to have a more profound answer. And the Alter Rebbe gave the answer, explained that Ayeka also means the person has a message in life. And a person comes down in this world, and there's sometimes that he gets a certain awakening, himself doesn't even know from where it comes from, and asking him, Ayeka, where are you? And sometimes he realizes he went off track. Eibishter helped that today everything has to be translated, so we see it today also on the GPSs. If a person is going according to the directions, everything's going fine. Suddenly a person decides he's going off track, he decides he has a better idea. So immediately comes a reaction from the GPS recalculating. They're trying to get the person back on track. And that is basically that the union of Ayeka is, it's a reminder a person should know where is in the world. The Rebbe does the Ayeka in the Hayom Yom about a month before the end of the Luach. The Rebbe writes, a neshama comes down in this world in Saneg al Hashem. In other words, to reach the level of ecstasy of godliness, and then the Rebbe ends up the Pisgam, a ven late menasok. For when are you postponing? There's 2 Pisgam in Hayom Yom, and they're finished with a question mark. And both are powerful messages. One is the 30th of Adar, Aleph. The Rebbe writes that a person comes down in this world, comes down for a certain mission, and then the Rebbe says, therefore a person should take into account what he accomplished in the world. If not, it should break him like a splinter, a kisser, saying, what am I doing in this world? And this is how the Pisgam finishes. This is Adar. Adar is the union of Dira the Tachtena. Rebbe always spoke Adar is Aleph, accomplishing a dwelling place for the Eibishter. Then comes towards the end of the Luach, which is basically, as we'll mention further, there's an occasion, B'negia, to the age of a person. As we mentioned it further down, that Bechlal, the Rebbe once mentioned that every year in a person's life reflects the 70 years of a person, which means that a year in a person's life is a shleimus. The next year is a repetition. It's called Shana, like Shniya, second, as Evan Ezra says, because all the seasons you have in 1 year. So the Melaveh, the next year is a repetition. So as we look in the Hayom Yom, we divide the Hayom Yom, 383 days by 70. So we have that every 5-6 days in the Luach is a year in a person's age. A year in a person's life. Because we look at this Pisgah Mecheshvan, which is the end of the year almost, the person is 65. 65. In America it's called he's retired, v'chulu, finished. So the Rebbe says, you came down for a certain goal here. What are you waiting for? This is it's like reminding a person at that age, wake up. So I'll call upon him, this is the Inyan of Ayeka. There's once a mice in Toronto that there was a certain project that everyone wanted should be taken care of in 24 hours. A certain house that was bought by a certain group of people that everyone wanted that it should mamish be bought by Chabad. And the Askonim, the communal people, got involved. But it seems like at a certain point, it was the middle of the day, this one took a nap, the chulu. Rabbi Chadikov started to call up all these people, and the Rebbe said, ask them, what are they sleeping? And happened to be each one of them took a nap there. Punkt at that time in the day. So he said, well, what are you sleeping? He said, but the Rebbe wasn't stuck on Inyan from Nacht. Yeah. The fucking Inyan from Nacht, the Poshit. So the Melaveh, this is the Inyan of Ayeka that a person reminds himself, especially when it comes to auspicious days. The Kislev, a day of reflection, a day of evaluation, is a time that a person should think to himself, I am a chassid, I'm connected with the Rebbe. Let me check if all the channels are working, all the inyanim are working, all the connections are working. There's a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe, very powerful letter. He writes to two brothers, I think he wrote it to a certain family, and it's 1948, and he says, you are thanking the Eibishter that you are mekusha to me. That's what Frierdiker writes. So Frierdiker goes ahead and says, with what are you mekusha to me? It's a whole letter, and a powerful letter, it's printed. I think even the names of it. It's basically, you're thanking the Eibishter, what are you mekusha to me? So that's basically, a person has to see, am I mekusha? Is it a connection, no connection? There was once a chassid that he was in a certain shlichus, a certain situation at the time the Rebbe Rashab, I think one of the Rabbeim, and he was in a certain dire situation, and he said, the Rebbe, or the Akrachtitan Rebbe. And at that time, the Rebbe in Lubavitch asked, what's happening with him? The connection was healthy and clear. Mainly, it was immediately there was a response from the Rebbe. He was in Russia, he couldn't write a pidyon, he was thinking, and suddenly a letter comes to England, to his family in England, in response to his concern. They had no idea what this is about. It took a good while till he came out of Russia, and then he realized it was that day that he was very depressed, and he wrote that letter. He was going to write the letter. So the Rebbe was connecting with Machshava. This week's Parsha, Vayishlach, yeah, it speaks about Shem, but then there is a Maisa that Vayaveyu alo ir betach. Vayaveyu alo ir betach means they came on the city. So there's two pirushim. The second pirush is Bituchim hoyu bekeiche shalei zokim. They felt secure with the keach of Yankiv. So the Rebbe asks the question, the Rebbe clarifies, elaborates. What is the keach of Yankiv? Yankiv didn't want it. He was upset about it. He was never asked. So the Rebbe says this teaches us something in his kashas. One time over the years that we see this word from the Rebbe. The Rebbe said that sometimes there's in Yonim that a person doesn't have a chance to ask the Rebbe. But he knows the Rebbe wants it. And the Melaveh, he goes on his own. The Rebbe says, but the condition is that he accepts the Rebbe as his Rebbe and that he is his chassid and Talmud. And the Melaveh them betuchim, they can feel secure that they will accomplish what they need to accomplish. And this is basically what the inyan of betuchim bekeicha shalei zoken, the inyan of iskashas, the inyan of ayeka, which is basically connecting with the Rebbe. And this is basically, the Rebbe says in the Sikha that the Ayeka actually brought the Alter Rebbe back down here in this world. The Alter Rebbe was in the Tnu of Ratzin, removing oneself from the world, and the Ayeka reminded him what he needs to do. What is he here for in this physical world? As the Alter Rebbe once told so many Yechidus, somebody came and complained that things were not going good. So he says, the Alter Rebbe said, you need to do what you need to do. What David has to do, that is his thing. But Melaveh, everyone has to do their thing. And the Eibishter does his thing, and the Yid does his thing. And the same thing is also in regards to certain shlichus. There's a sipur that Rabbi Lu just told last week, Rabbi Shmuel Lu, an interesting story. He was an oval for his mother, and he davened for the Yomid. But then he figured, in addition to davening for the Yomid, he wants to also start being a Balkeda. So he did Mondays, Thursdays. But the Balkeda wasn't so polished by him. He felt it wasn't so. Suddenly there's a Sikha from the Rebbe, middle of the Fabringen. The Rebbe tells a story that the Alter Rebbe said that sometimes a neshama comes down this physical world and does not really realize what's her purpose, what's the talents of the neshama, what's the mission of the neshama. And he gives an example of a balagola, a coach driver, and a gvir, a rich person to come. They're coming to a city, it's Friday, they're coming to the city, and all of a sudden the wagon falls into a ditch, and the balagola, for whatever reason, didn't really rush into the job. If I kept the other, this dignified person, he started to delve into the mud and everything, he got all dirtied up. He comes into the city, so they figure the one that's all dirty is the balagola. He's the coach driver, it's his job. The other one, dressed with he is the chashuv person, he's the dignified person. So this one they give a special, respectable, honorable place where to stay, and the other one is like, okay, he's there over Shabbos. So the Alter Rebbe says the Lashon Neshamas Hateyas. Neshamas Hateyas means neshamas that are just lost. The one, certain shlichus a person has, the Rebbe writes many times in letters. Certain people have certain talents, and this is what they can accomplish, and that's what they're cut out for, and that's what they need to accomplish as a mission. And then there are certain people whose missions are, they think they need this, they need that, so this is our koponim, the lesson, Benegir to Sai Shlichus and Sai Neshamas Hateyas. A person should know exactly what his thing is, because sometimes he's just wasting time with doing something which is not really his image. And this is the lesson of the Ayeka, as it's called, the wake-up call, that it's a person should, from time to time, think about it. He shouldn't wait till it comes from above. It's something sometimes that he needs to hear it, do it on his own, initiate on his own, as he's just coming now from Yutas Kislev. Actually, we find ourselves in Yutas Kislev, that it's a time that a person should evaluate and see what they can accomplish. And that they can, and in a sense, they can accomplish more than they figure they can accomplish. But it's just certain reasons, the Rebbe says, Mitzad Yetzer Hara, that sometimes tells the person he's tired, or whatever reason he has, whatever reason he finds for him to say. L'chaim, the Eibishter says a helpful that we should take these achlotis and should come down in Peil Mamish. When it comes lahavdul to the New Year revelers, they make all the achlotis. Kos garnish and geld, they drink, and then they're all hyped up, and they make all kinds of achlotis. Achlota from a resolution of a diet, achlota and this and that, and these things are not long-lived. So that's why the Rebbe stresses it very much. I think he bases it on Yicholzu. That b'shas a person makes a resolution, the eitzah is that a person should at least start bringing it down in a practical sense, but mainly he solidifies it, that then it has a long lasting. The Rabbi says, the help that we should all be matzliach with our hachlotus tables. It's a meeting from the Alter Rebbe that they used to sing by the Rebbe's Fabringen, the beginning of the Fabringen for many years. the Rebbe in prison. So there was an occasion that came up for Kiddush Levana. The pastors, the Rebbe was there 2 months, which is connected with Kiddush Levana, Kiddush Chesed and Kiddush Kislev. And there was an occasion that they transported the Rebbe from one building to another by boat. And the Rebbe asked, he saw a clear Levana, if you can make Kiddush Levana. They didn't want to agree on the pail. The boat stopped on its own. And the Rebbe said, no, he wants them to stop the boat. So they told the Rebbe that, here, you stop the boat, what are you asking for? He wanted that they should stop the boat. So he asked the Rebbe, what are you going to give us as a reward for stopping the boat? So the Rebbe promised them a manuscript, a Ksaviyat, and as the Frierdiker Rebbe says in the Sikha, it was like something of a page, and he says, picture how this Ksav Yad Kodesh is found in exile in a house there from someone, Ksav Yad Kodesh of the Alter Rebbe himself. Etzem Guf Ksav Yad Kodesh. But this was all a price that the Alter Rebbe paid because he wanted that the mitzvah should be done, it should be with the cooperation of Derech HaTeva. The Rebbe explains the Sichas, as well as the Friedrich Rebbe explains also in the Sicha, that this is basically the whole tachlis of Torah mitzvahs, that the union of Torah mitzvahs is basically that it should be dafka within the framework of nature, framework of time and space, and Mamela, everything has to be done within the cooperation of Teva itself. And therefore, the Alter Rebbe was very strong about it, that they should stop the boat in order that it should be also with the hesed, with the consent of the people around him. Which this is Bechlolis in every union in Torah mitzvahs, you have two inyanim. You have the union of Torah, Aderech, like you have in mitzvahs Gufa. The mitzvahs are basically the Ratzon of Hashem, and together with that, it is done in this physical world. It is done with physical objects. And in the merit of doing mitzvahs, as a neshama in a guf, so Mela then the neshama merits to receive the garments of the Maila, the higher heavens, the higher spheres, that the neshama merits to see revelations of godliness. So this is because mitzvahs has in itself the two ends. One is that it's the Ratzon of Hashem. On the other hand, it has to be done in this physical world. To the extent that Rebbe explains in a word that's mentioned in Chassidus, that the Malach Michal would give away his whole Aveda for one corner of a person's tzitzis. Konaf of Talis Cotton. He would give away all his whole Aveda. So the Rebbe's medayik, what is the connection between tzitzis and his Aveda? The Rebbe says, the union of tzitzis is the four tzitzis, the four corners, are basically, they reflect the Merkava. Malach Michal is one of the four. The Mele, he sees tzitzis of a Yid, he says he would give away his whole Aveda for the tzitzis of a Yid, which is one kind. That's how the Rebbe explains it on the
Not much you can do about that.
Was? They feeling them thus.
To make sure it's Derech HaTeva.
Derech HaTeva? I didn't even talk with him yet. So this is basically Sayin Tein and Sayin Mitzvahs. Now there's also Megia Mitzvahs. You find it also that the Rebbe sometimes when it came to Inyonim of L'mayla Mateva, so there were Inyonim that the Rebbe said, even when it came to L'mayla Mateva, the Rebbe said to check with people who are in Teva, ministering different Inyonim, if they can take in consideration to do a certain thing. Which this we find B'Negiah to medicine. The B'Shas came to medicine, it said that there were times letters that the Rebbe wrote to people that they should speak with the doctor if he can think about a certain option. They say not that the Rebbe is openly saying he's doing a miracle, but to do something only it should be a garment mitzvah nature, and if the doctor would hear it, the doctor would say, "Are you wild? This is against conventional medicine, and I could lose my license." With all inyanim, wherever it goes with it. But by the Rebbe, this was just bullshit. It has to go to the doctor, but the Rebbe is giving a hamtzah, a certain insight. The same thing is also B'Negiah to Meivsim. Meivsim in inyanim of medicine. On one hand, it goes to the channel of medicine. On the other hand, it is a inyan which is higher than Teva. When a person looks, it's higher than Teva. Aderech, like we find by the Nes of Purim. The Nes of Purim, on one hand, it's called Nes Melubish B'Teva. Nes Melubish B'Teva means that it's enclosed in nature. So the Rebbe says, like a sort of a comment, the Rebbe said, Eichmer nature. It's also like how could you say it's nature? The Rebbe says, look at the story of Esther. She's approaching the king after fasting 3 days. And Shleishas Yom, let's also come to the king. So the Rebbe says, and she found a charm in the eyes of the king. The Rebbe says, who could find charm in the eyes of another person after fasting 3 days? Although he was a melech typish and all in Yalim, the Gashmi says, so the Rebbe says this alone shows it was a nes. You don't realize it was a nes mamish that he found charm in her eyes and gave her and then became the first feast, the second one before. So I'll call upon him. This is basically because a yid is in neshama beguf, so he has to work on both fronts. On one hand, it has to be tzad neshama, it has to be mitzvah Torah, and it's connected to the Eibishter, and mainly has to do everything as the Eibishter tells us in Torah. But yachad im zeh has to be also b'derech hateva. He has to go through a certain channel, and mainly then he connects it with this physical world. As the Alter Rebbe, the story of the Alter Rebbe, that the Rebbe brings in a letter mentions it in a letter to a lady who was going through a certain experience, medical experience, and this was in the early years of the Nisias. And the Alter Rebbe said that she should drink water and a half glass of water, a half a glass of water, with and eating matzah. So eating matzah, we were taught that matzah is meichel das rasa. It's a meichel of refuah. Water is often leishasa. The person eats and doesn't drink, it's not good. But meila is drinking. It's also part of it. The Rebbe says the lashon by the Alter Rebbe, it was an achiza b'teva, some kind of a connection, some kind of a link with teva. The Gashmi is all better. It doesn't happen that everybody who's going to drink staka in the Zayar, it says, and the Rebbe did it a few times. There was one time in Tafshin Yud Gimel that the Rebbe asked once after the Seder, whoever needs refuah, they should come into him, and the Rebbe gave them the matzah. Gave him matzah then after the Seder, either the first night or the second night. By Yom Yom it's mentioned that it's Meichel of Amunah, Meichel of Refuah. There was one time, there was a patient that my father had, and he was not well, and he couldn't eat matzah mamish, like a whole matzah, biting into matzah. So there's different options, halachically, what we can get, what we can manage. And he discussed it with the Rebbe at a Pesach. The Rebbe told my father then that he should come again, that he would receive a matzah every year from the Rebbe, a whole matzah. The Rebbe would say this is for the refuah. The Rebbe would always say, Meichel of Amunah, Meichel of Refuah. Meichel Dememnusa, Meichel Aswasa. So the Rebbe told him to come the second night also. So my father asked the Rebbe, then it says in Hayim Yain, first night, the first day is the Yin of Amunah, second day is Refuah. So Beila Chayir said, this is what the Rebbe asked for the second night. So the Rebbe said that bats and both nights are both in there. The Vice is that every night has its... So I'll call upon him, the Rebbe shows are helpful, that everybody should be well, everybody that's well should remain well, and there's a bleiben gesund, le'erich yamim v'shanim teves, and al derech zeh should be also the first Shlema for Yesiditzko b'Simachasya, and for Eitan Meir ben Yoda, and also for Shana Teve Basleya, Shana Ben Basleya, and everybody that needs it for it. The Alter Rebbe mentions, Chassidische Verbringen can accomplish, Malach Mechol can't accomplish. Ja, so sie sein Poshet bleiben gesund und Ufton Gräse in Janim, Ariches Yamin schon im Tevis Lachai. Amen. Ya da da da, ya da da da, ya da da ya.
Something?
I'm bringing you, like that? Like this is good?
Mentioned earlier in regards to the Yonim of Teiro Mitzvahs that has to be Dafka B'derech HaTeva, and therefore we saw by the Rebbe that the Anhoga was that it has to go through the framework of Teva, although the Teva is only a channel to bring down the brachas. So one of the Yonim that we saw it very obvious and on a personal level was basically B'negea to the Yonim of Refuah, B'negea to healing, B'negea medicine. My father was a doctor by the Rebbe 40 years, and there were many Yonim of Nisim, Meifsim, that the Rebbe worked through my father, and to the extent that when people would come to him and he would ask, what did the Rebbe tell you? The Rebbe mentioned his name, then he knew that the Rebbe wanted that, he knew exactly what the Rebbe wanted, and the Mela, that's the way he processed it. If the Rebbe said it in a way of Leifer, if he did v'chulu. So that was a different channel, a different message from my father, that he should treat it in a regular way as a doctor. So there was a Maisa that happened. This happened in Tafshin Lamed Beis, 1972. I don't know what part of the year. And a person came to the Rebbe. They wrote to the Rebbe that they have a certain heart condition, and they asked him the Rebbe what to do. So the Rebbe sent him then to a rabbi, doctor, as the Rebbe says, all the teyarim, all the titles on the stationery. It's Rabbi Twersky. And he was a referral. He mamish would send people to different top doctors in every field of medicine. And when he came to negate this condition, he sent this person to a doctor who already retired from cardiology, but he was willing to see this person. The pale mamish, the end of the whole thing was that she came to him, and the doctor said that the surgery is needed immediately. He says not even to wait a half a year. He says he doesn't give it more than half a year if they don't do surgery. Lady walked out from there in 1972 with heart surgery, which is any time not something that a person wants, and she said she's not going through it. They wrote into the Rebbe. The Rebbe sent him to my father. My father asked, what did the Rebbe say? Did the Rebbe say my name, or the Rebbe said Reifa Yedid? So they told my father that the Rebbe mentioned your name. They were actually patients of my father as a regular physician. So my father right there and then said there's no need for surgery. He knew exactly what the Rebbe wanted. They had no idea what was going on here. They're very nervous because here you had the cardiologist from all the years, and that's his specialty. And the Imamish really gave a very grim picture of what's going on. And they asked, at least listen to what the doctor, if you can hear what he says, maybe you'll hear some details that you're not aware of. Father says, I don't see any point in it. No, the pale mamish, after he saw that the family was very shaken up, so he agreed. He called up the cardiologist, spoke with him about 10 minutes, and after 10 minutes he went off the phone and he said, halt seins and ich halt meins. He holds his and I hold mine, there's no need for surgery. The pale mamish, they wrote into the Rebbe what my father said. The Rebbe gave a brach on his part, and she lived another 18 years. Never had a problem with the heart, and even her ptira was not heart related. So I said that there was a certain code that my father had when he gave them minyan. Well, that is it. There was another story with a young bacher, and this needs a whole akdama because basically we're talking about Simchas Torah in Lubavitch is higher than words. And it's even hard today, sitting in Tafshin Pei Dalet, discussing the big night in Lubavitch, which was, today in English they call it all-nighter. So it's basically, this is the night between Shemoneh Atzeres and Simchas Torah. And it was literally mamish all night. The Rebbe verbrennt the night before Simchas Torah, 8 in the evening, sometimes 9 o'clock, and verbrennt till about 12, and 12 o'clock, the Elam prepared for Akofis. 1 in the morning, the Rabbi came in for Autoration. This is always, this is not just in the later years. Earlier years, I remember as a child that you couldn't get close to 770 because all the couples, young modern couples, after they finished Akofis in their shul, they would embark on 770. It was mamash till Kingston Avenue, packed. At one point, even the Rebbe was Meir, there shouldn't be any Rikudi Taruvish there because the Chavrim were enjoying themselves. As the years moved on, a lot of them moved out, so that's where it cleared. But everybody knew the climax of the Akofah season 770. Maybe they came to 770. I don't even know if they walked into that. They once wanted to hang out in the Psa, and then 1 o'clock they would come into Adoration. Now people that went to Halucha, many people went to Halucha, And we would leave 6 in the evening, go to Flatbush. We would make Kiddush there. Graciously, we would eat something. We didn't eat any sudas there. A piece of mazenas. And we're on the way back. And together with that, it was also Mesiras Nefesh. Because while we're looking at the clock, it's 10 to 9. 9 o'clock, the Rebbe is coming into Fabrengen, and here we are an hour and 20 minutes away from 770. The Rebbe is Fabrengen. It really irked us. It was like, they realized later, years later, there was a letter that Rebbe wrote to Rabbi Talushkin, the Rav Nissen Talushkin, the Mesiras Nefesh of Bachadim, knowing that there's a Fabrengen and they're somewhere else. It's the only time that worked out. I mean, that Hatchila we knew it's going to happen. Abacha came back to 770. There wasn't really much to eat. He could have gone home, but the Rebbe's Fabrengen, how he's going to go home? After Fabrengen, he has to catch a place for Hakofis. So Meilit, when Hakofis finished 2:30, 3 o'clock, we sat down and ate the Suda, 3 a.m., the Suda of the 7 hours before. The Eibishter geholfen, as er zugestellt sich noch in Markowitz, and he started to prepare with the food outside, with the truck and everything, and Imam saved people, because it was a hard night with Mitzademina. A child who found a 12-year-old child, it was between the Fabrengen and Hakofes, and there was a lot of activity going on in 770. The activity mainly was technically to convert the shul from a Fabrengen to Hakofes. We can say that they were the 10 nisim Beis HaMikdash, because the benches were flying, everything was flying. It was mamish nisim that people, it was mamish. Kobam, this child fainted. Reasons how I'd never heard what would happen. He blacked out or whatever. His father took him upstairs and went to Rabbi Chodikov. Rabbi Chodikov said that the Rebbe is now preparing for Hakofes. It's not safe to go in, but Rabbi Chodikov himself went in. He came out. He said that the Rebbe instructed they should call my father to find someone in 770. In that time, downstairs, can I know thousands of people. It's already after Sukkah, it's after sitting in the Sukkah. And geht at 96, als Tutzig dort. The only thing you had over there was Tam-Tam and 96, if you wanted to taste something. Sakoponim, where's he going to find my father? So Rabbi Chodikov said, you'll find him. Those moments, my father is walking in from upstairs, from the street, the upstairs shul, the break was over, and Punkt walks in there. And he asked him to see his child, and my father saw the child, said everything will be all right. Then he asked to see the Rebbe. He had an open door by the Rebbe, and he spoke with the Rebbe a while. He came out from the Yechidas, from the room, from the Rebbe's room. He told the father of the child, and this I heard from the father of the child, that the Rebbe told him already in the past, and based on that, that's what he did now. That sometimes you come to a doctor, can come to a medical situation which he can't do anything beyond medicine. So the Rebbe says, you should paskin that everything will be all right, and I will do the rest. The child woke up a few minutes later. The Rebbe waited till he came down to Hakofes. The child today is a shliach in Vermont, Rabbi Yitzchak Raskin. And his father was the legendary Rabbi Raskin from Morocco. Told me the story a few times. So this was like a whole musik that the Rebbe wanted he should paskin. The third story,
Who paskin?
that my father should paskin. A third story happened.
What's love if he's to be on Zoom?
With a shliach from Argentina, famous Abel Baumgarten, and he was diagnosed with an illness in the end of the 60s. He went there in the 50s. And on the late Chofs, the beginning of the Lamed, was diagnosed with something serious, came to New York, took all the tests. Then he took all his folder. He had this generation is too young to know him. He's not here already, 47 years. He was a very breite person. Breite means like his whole outlook at things. Tall, wide, he would come in, he would open 2 doors. Come into the shul, as it says in Gemara, Leilim Yechanisov and B'shteit Losses. So he went in, it was mamish like 2 doors. When Salkopanim, that's a freiliche Rabbi, not always in the happy side. He takes his medical records, he comes into the Rebbe and says, here, Rebbe, this is the situation. The Rebbe says to him, what are you coming to me? He sends him to my father. Comes to my father. My father asks him, show me where's the x-ray, he shows him the x-ray. So my father says, so where is it? He says, here, right here. My father says, I don't see anything there. So I said, here, mamash here. He didn't have to know what was going on here. He takes the x-ray, the whole file, he runs back to the Rebbe. He tells the Rebbe says, was hat gesagt? He doesn't see anything. So the Rebbe says, now let me give a look. The Rebbe says, I also don't see anything. And they'll see this. The person lived another 7 years. It was then that he meiste mit Lamed Ches, is da reingehen in dem da. But upon him, he was nifter in Lamed Ches, other time. So B'chol Eifen, this is basically the inyan of B'derech HaTeva. There was one time the Rebbe walked out of the room, he had a telegram in his hand, and he showed my father the telegram and asked if there's any refuah for it. Is there any solution, health-wise? So my father said, in medicine, there's nothing new yet in this inyan. The Rebbe takes the telegram, comes out a while later again. He knew my father knew that the Rebbe wanted to say, Sedoepes. Then the Rebbe could already channel it through. So my father said, yes, Sedoepes Achidish. That was it. The Rebbe went back and Pagita. There's one time the Rebbe gave my father a letter. It was before going home. Before the Rebbe was going home, the Elam was waiting outside. I remember I was waiting outside then. And the Rebbe gave him a letter for someone that he received. And the Rebbe said to check out. My father was up to date in Switzerland with all the new developments, all the new chidushim. He would read all the literature and everything. And the Rebbe asked if there's something new in the singing. He should write to them and find out. So the Rebbe gave him the letter, and he did his research, and then he returned back to the Rebbe. He didn't talk. In Yananda, we heard from my father, Bechlal, are very few things. There's the famous story with a chassid who got sick in the late 1950s. It was Shmini Atzeres, Shabbos, and his daughter went to the Rebbe's house and asked for a bracha for Leitzah. The chassid sent his daughter to the Rebbe's house. Comes to the house, it was Shabbos in the morning, Shmini Atzeres, the Rebbe answers the door, and she gives over the message to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe suggests she should go to my father. His daughter leaves the house, she reminds herself they already called the doctor. So what she do? She comes back to the house, the Rebbe answers the door, and the Rebbe takes this inquiry as it would be the first time the person is asking. Now, the Rebbe never interpreted any words. She just, when people would ask her, what do you think? She said, I am just relaying to you the words of my husband. My mom. And Melaveh, it was, the Pil Mamish came back to the Rebbe, they already had a doctor. The Rebbe says, okay, so let them hear what the other doctor says. When he came home, the father wanted to know exactly the whole story, found out that the first preference that Rebbe had was to call my father. Calls my father. My father looked at the situation, it was a kidney stone and it was a high fever. So my father said, it's not pikuach nefesh mamish, wait till after Shabbos. And after Shabbos, the stone passed. That night was the Fabrengen. This is the Fabrengen before HaKofes. My father describes to me, this is one of very few stories that my father told me because I asked him, brought him, so he clarified it. He was coming then from another patient. He had an instrument in his pocket, which doesn't make it so easy to walk. And here he's standing by Fabrengen, and the Rebbe realizes that he's not able to climb over tables. The Rebbe stood up. The Rebbe took from his wine, and took from mezenas, piece of mezenas and the wine, and the Rebbe gave it to him. And the Rebbe told him that you should eat it, and the patient will get well. And the Rebbe says, the Kayan eats, and the owners are forgiven. And then the Rebbe continued, you should know you're a big doctor. And the Melaveh, when other doctors hold different than I hold, the Rebbe said, I will send to you, and you will know what exactly I want. This was the Seder that began then, and my father understood what was it, the codes, how the Rebbe worked. Al kol panim, what we see from here is, on one hand, there's the inyanim of refuah b'derech hateva. On the other hand, there's inyanim that strings that are being pulled milmayla. And this is the thing, as the Rebbe says, he can do the rest. So this is basically the bechlolos, the whole inyan, the whole musik, the whole concept of Torah mitzvahs, is on one hand, he's in world. On the other hand, he's connecting with higher than world. And the Rebbe says, helfen that we should be able to fulfill everything we need to fulfill in this world. Le'erech yamim b'shanim tevis. L'chaim.
Last story said was about Zoma Gerari. The kidney stone story is Gerari. The story with the kidney stone. I remember when you told her when we were in Zom. There's an inyan that took place
43 years ago, and it finished on Yutas Kislev, although we mentioned it in the past, but it's interesting lessons when we delve into the story, how the Rebbe was guiding through a whole week of very intense activity, project going on. This was Rosh Chodesh Kislev, Tavshin Mem Aleph. It's late 1980, and the Rebbe called in Rabbi Chodikov and asked if they can make an mafteach, an index on Svarim of the Alter Rebbe, 11 Svarim, and it should be ready the next time he goes to the Eyal, which is 9 days later, Tes Kislev. And the Rebbe wanted that this should be done by people who have experience, and wanted to know how much they want to get paid, and when they're ready to begin. This was Sunday, Vayetze, and the Rabbi Chodikov immediately got to process this inyan, and he got a group, a manpower group, which was ready to do it. They just weren't sure if the Asifa will be 1:30 in the afternoon or 3:30 in the afternoon. And the Peil Mamish, the Rebbe said, if they can do it 1:30, why should they do it 3:30? The Asifa took place. The Rebbe got the news they're beginning to work. And this is not an easy thing. This is 11 Svarim of the Alter Rebbe's Maimorim. Each Sefer is hundreds of pages. A lot of Kabbalah. You need to learn it, you need to understand it, and you need to be able to enter it as an entry and a short description what this entry, what this keyword means, how it's explained in the Alter Rebbe's Maimer. And the Rebbe wrote them, Niskabel V'tach, that he received the good news. And the timing is exactly the time of Parsha Vayetze, which is Vayisa Yankev Raglov. Yankev uplifted his feet. This was Vayetze. He heard good news, and Melaveh, his feet were light, felt light, and he was able to walk. He heard good news. The Rebbe was implying very clearly that he heard good news, and Melaveh, this was a good psuta for the Rebbe. Every night, a report went into the Rebbe how many pages they covered. How many pages in Maimorim did they cover? And this went on day after day. The Rebbe watched it very carefully, and he would respond sometimes with a comment. And one of the first comments that the Rebbe wrote was, Tzarich Iyun, if they can finish on time. It's such a pace, it's doubtful if they can finish on time. The next day they wrote into the Rebbe a duch, and they told the Rebbe that Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarech, we hope to finish it in time. That was the message back to the Rebbe. The Rebbe responding to this letter, to this notification, the Rebbe writes, by circling the words Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarech, and he adds, Be'im Yinatzlua K'diboy. Means if they will fulfill, they'll use the time the right manner. And they also wrote that we hope to finish Liyem HaMugbul, that Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach, we hope to finish to the designated date. The Rebbe circles HaMugbul. Mugbul means limitation. The Rebbe says limitation. In Chodesh Kislev, you're talking about limitations. Before Chodesh Kislev, you can talk about limitations. Maybe you can finish even earlier. Finish even earlier. And that's how it went every day. Some people fell out. There was intense work. I was eager then to be part of the group. I entered the group then. Friday morning, the Rebbe comes to shul. The Rebbe says, when is he getting the report from Friday? Friday, Vayetze was a very short Friday. Shortest Fridays. Lichbenchen is 4:10. New York, to move on. And the Rebbe asked when is he getting the report. So he told the Rebbe the report from Friday is going to go together with Sunday. So the Rebbe said, Friday is 1 week, Sunday is another week. Every week has its own tziruf of Shem Adna. You can't mix the tzirufim. Every week has its own sequence, Shem Adna, and b'meila you can't mix them, merge one with another. The Rebbe says he's waiting till right before Lichtmenschen. Waiting before Lichtmenschen, and that's when the Rebbe actually got the report 5 to 4. Then the Rebbe went home, came back right before Shabbos. But before that, the Rebbe asked, when is he getting the report from Mitzvah Shabbos? So he told the Rebbe, Mitzvah Shabbos will be together with Sunday. So the Rebbe said, no, Mitzvah Shabbos is one day, Sunday is another day. That's what they did. They worked on it and they finished it. And Monday, Test Kislev was all ready. It was on index cards. They made copies of it. The Rebbe took it to the Eyal. It was understood that, the Rebbe says the Eyal day, the next one was the Eyal, was understood that the Rebbe wanted copies. So it was Tvashet done by index cards. They asked the Rebbe if they should include what the Rebbe did in his index, in his Mafteach, Antanya, Tereira, Lekutepera, which the Rebbe did 1940s, because an earlier. So the Rebbe said, yeah, they can include it. He started to work on it, they included it, and then they started to typeset it. The Rebbe wrote then that Bevada Yadio Heitev, they'll surely proofread it well, and the Tamtzis is, the contents is, the schusad murazakin tamed l'cholechot v'echad bakil. The schusad that the Rebbe should stand by for all involved. So you had people that were the typesetters, you had people who were doing the research, you had people who were the people running the show. It was a whole team together. The Rebbe, usually when the Rebbe would get proof sheets of something, the Rebbe would hold it in his room till the Sefer is printed. And when the Sefer is printed, men, ik denk dat het toestel agressie al weet, de beste die zal er verder klappen, of kunnen we een klap een kop, nou, als je het toe doet, als dat hem. Akopanim, Lepeel, the Rebbe took it home, instead of keeping it in his room, and he started to work on it. He started to go through it, correct things, add things. The Rebbe himself changed things that were in his own mafteach, Antanya Teirei L'Kutatera. And the Rebbe caught also mistakes, errors that were taking place. Chavre were working mamash like overtime. And the Rebbe came back to 770 full proof sheets with editing. Sefer was then supposed to be published. Where is it supposed to be published? No company wanted to take it because the Rebbe wanted it should be ready for Yutas Kislev. Maybe how is it shaykh to finish in such a short time? It should be bound and for sale Yutas Kislev. So what the Rebbe said was they can print it upstairs in the Bavla Fotza Sichas. No, they told the Rebbe, I mean, this is what we heard. The question is how much manpower they have. We heard them, this is how official it is, but we heard then that the Rebbe said that there's enough chavre that are wandering around there, and the mainly you can use them to mobilize them for the work. Then came the final stages, the Akdosha. The Akdosha means the sponsor in the back, the names of those who sponsored the Inyan. They asked the Rebbe, what do we do with Akdosha? The Rebbe said, Akdosha be these 27 people who worked on this Mafteach. And the Rebbe said, in order that it should be a ishtatvus, usually sponsoring a sefer costs nice thousands of dollars. The Rebbe said, everyone in the list should pay $1.80. So it's 27 times $1.80. This is the sachakul from the whole Akdosha Begashmis. They came then, they handed in the list to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe put his name in amongst the names. By Osimem, the Rebbe put his name in. His name and his mother's name. That's what the Rebbe instructed everybody should do. No family name, nothing else. The name, then the mother's name. When they saw the Rebbe's name, they bolded it. The Rebbe said, no, it should be plain. They put Shlita there. The Rebbe took the Shlita, he pulled it on the bottom after everybody's names. And he wrote there, Ala Richosam, Ala Zrizus, a ganze Linie lang geschrieben. Pesach David, the Rebbe also added a paragraph or so. So, it's being printed. The Rebbe wanted it should be printed between Tes Kislev and Yutes Kislev. We understood it meant Yudalet Kislev. The Rebbe asked it should be sold for $1. Yutes Kislev, the boxes came to cost. There were 250 or 60 svarim they were to make. They didn't have so much paper upstairs. They don't make svarim upstairs. And it was grabbed mamish out of the boxes, $1 of chulu in minutes, less than minutes mamish. The whole thing went. And this was a Maisa Meifes that Rabbi Chodikov said, Pashir, was a Maisa Meifes of the Rebbe that in 1 week the Rebbe pulled off such a inyan. This is a mafteach that people worked on it, put it together in entries, typeset it, printed it, bound it, and was ready for sale, Yutes Kislev. My mother medal to Rebbe's mafteach, and that Rebbe's my mother. And here we see how the Rebbe used Pashit in a auspicious time. There was one time that the Rebbe said, if a certain sefer cannot be done by a certain date, they shouldn't even bother preparing it. It was inyanim by the Rebbe, the inyanim of Svarim were like unpredictable. Suddenly the Rebbe wants a sefer, and it was himudike inyanim. The Rebbe once said that the inyan of printing Svarim minimizes every sefer in Kedusha, minimizes a sefer in Lumaza. When I Yid, his name was Rab Zalman Duchman. Rab Zalman Duchman asked the Rebbe, why is he so insisting about printing L'Shema Ezem? So the Rebbe says, because when you print a sefer in Kedusha, there's one less in Lumaza. So basically the inyan, and especially an inyan of a sefer, which is the data. So this shows Bechlal. When we take out from the story what happened over here is that when they wrote that they're relying on the Eibishter, the Rebbe says the first thing in is B'imyan Atzluah K'diboy. You have to do K'diboy. K'diboy means as much as you can do. The potential that you have to fulfill. The Eibishter is doing his, aber Shiknitzum Eibishter. And then the Rebbe says, you're already talking of Yom HaMugbal. Yom HaMugbal is a designated date, but Mugbal means also limitation. The Rebbe says, you're speaking about limitation. What kind of limitation is a Chedesh Kislev? Which means you have to stretch and run on anything. Basically, everything can be accomplished and you don't have to think of anything. You have also the Chedesh itself helping you. And Melaveh, the Rebbe was able to accomplish it, and the Mafteach came out. It was the first edition. Then the second edition came out, the price went up a little. But the inyan of a mafteach by the Rebbe would make many maftechas. He made a mafteach on the Alter Rebbe Svarim Tanya Terei L'Kutera. Made a mafteach on Mittel Rebbe Svarim son. He made a mafteach on the Rebbe Rashab Svarim, Maimorim, which he had then. And some of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimorim. By the Rebbe, the inyan of mafteach was a very important inyan. When a person would write to the Rebbe, send to the Rebbe a sefer. Send the sefer. The Rebbe would say, how do you make a sefer without making an index? So it's like a halbazach. It's like a boat without a oar. You can't. You have to process. The person has to find something. And as the Rebbe said in the Sikha in Tovshem Melaveh, that the inyan of a mafteach helps because it by knowing where everything is on an immediate basis, you don't have to waste time looking for it. And you can use the time more to delve in and to understand the inyan that is discussed in that sefer. So Melaveh the Rebbe says this is a mile of a mafteach, that there's no time wasted, not needed time. In other words, time should not be wasted on just searching it. which this Rebbe connects it with Shlomo Melech, that he also made as Nayim L'Teira, references to Teira. So the Rebbe is to help him that from the all the Maftechas, the Rebbe says that a Maftech and Sefer Chassidus is basically a contribution, contributes to the hastening of the Geula, because it is part of Yafutza Ma'anesecha Chutza. The person sees a Maftech, he's able to find Maimorim, he's able to find everything, the information that he needs immediately. B'meila is able to learn it, he's able to share it with others. And B'meila, this is how we can share it sometimes with many people around him. L'chaim. The Rebbe says, help him that we should have the Geula Amitas V'Ashleima. L'chaim. It's a hard to leave.
It's very rough to have to make it.
I made it after the school. When we started studying, I gave it the school. 3 days after I started.
Nowadays it's much easier.
We find ourselves in the year Tovshin Pei Dalet, which by the Rebbe, whenever there was a complete number of years, a sachakol, a summation of years, significant number, the Rebbe would make a shturim of it. So this year, we are 50 years from Tavshin Lamed Dalet. Tavshin Lamed Dalet, in English, Belaz is called 1974. And it is basically a year which the Miftzayim, the additional Miftzayim, the Hemshech to Miftzat Film began then. What is the inyan of Miftzat Film? The Miftzat Film began in the 6-Day War, before the 6-Day War. Shenkim Miftzayim, Miftzat Teira, Miftzat Mezuzah, Miftzat Tzedakah, Miftzat Bayis Moli Svarim, and also that mentioned Yavne V'Chachameh, and then at the end of the year was Miftzah Neshek. Now the Miftzayim, the Rebbe already began introducing the Miftzayim, was Yutas Kislev and Yud Shvat, each one individually. When the Rebbe would introduce a Miftzah, the Rebbe didn't say that he's making now a new Miftzah. The Rebbe didn't even mention the word Miftzah. The Rebbe said it's a modern word, and he started to use it in Miftzat Film, Legabe, when it came from Eretz Yisrael. The word came from Eretz Yisrael. So when it came to the Miftzayim, the Rebbe spoke about it. It was very obvious that it was a hemshach from after the war that began on Yom Kippur. And the Rebbe explained, for example, Miftzat Teira, the Talmud tells us that what is the union of Teira? Teira is considered a refuge city that protects a person when he runs away from a dangerous situation. This is the inyan of Teira, Ir Mikot. The inyan of Mezuzah protects the house. The inyan of Yavne V'Chachameh, the Rebbe says a very interesting word. Yavne V'Chachameh means that we're designating a certain territory for inyanim of Teira, which was B'negei Shtachim. Miftzat Film, we knew already that it's an inyan of protection. Al deras the Miftzat Tzedakah, it's understood. And each Miftzah came in a certain time, but it was through the winter, and it was very obvious to us that it was a Hemshech, especially when the Rebbe was saying to share it with the Israeli soldiers, that it was a Hemshech the Rebbe wanted to accomplish with Mitzad Eretz Yisrael. Al derech, like Miftzat Film, began 2 days before the 6-Day War. So B'negei to the Miftzayim, Miftzah Mezuzah stood out very much because basically the inyan of Miftzah Mezuzah was something that the Rebbe urged, and later there was a story that happened in Malot, the Maisa with children that were taken as hostages. It ended up in a sad way, nicht auf kein Jiden gedacht, and the Rebbe then spoke that this is the reason that which pushed him, Pasha, to do Mitzvah Mezuzah. The Rebbe says something pushed him to do the inyan of Mitzvah Mezuzah. The Rebbe says himself does not, it's him geshtupt. This is the way the Rebbe described it. Al Kopanim, this was B'negei the Miftzayim, but it was Miftzayim alone. It was an year, 7 time, that they realized that it's not enough. You need to go out in the streets with trucks. And that's when they started to rent the trucks, the Hertz trucks. The whole, the Hertz trucks open from the back with the Dalim Yanim. And
the box trucks, yeah?
The box trucks. The Hertz, yeah. And the Bochum would be driving them. And they started to go out in different points in the city, in different places, Madison Square Garden, Bechula. We came back then every day. We left 10 in the morning, we came back 8:30 in the evening. The Rebbe came 10 o'clock in the morning, so we had the music on. The Rebbe immediately, coming out of the car, the Rebbe motioned with the hand, and then we drove away. And then we came back. We stood until the skier. Put 190 people to film, other tank at 200. We were comparing notes then. Okay, after a while, the Rebbe said, what's happening with Seligson? And then summertime, they accomplished a new project. New project was take a tank mitzvah tank, to go out in the different cities, to stay there for a while, to do activities there for a week. I think it was that occasion, or maybe if they went a few weeks together, that the Rebbe gave out $5 whoever went. It was 5 mifzoim. The Rebbe explained that Bechal the Sichas, the union of 5 is 5 pirtzufim, the Sviras, the whole union of Chassidus Kabbalah. We went 1 week to Monsey, and 1 week we went to Irakedes, Pittsburgh. We were here in Pittsburgh for a week 50 years ago. 7 Tammuz. It was in the summertime, I think Tammuz. And we stayed by Rabbi Cheskel Deren, all of us all in Hakean, and this was our base. And then we would go out to put on film. So sometimes there's a mazel. You have the news media, but you don't have people coming up for film. Sometimes you have people going on film, but you don't have the news media. So mainly you needed to have both. But the whole it was Atzlachadik with Yarech. The Bachanim that went then, one of the Bachanim where we had Israeli Bachanim, we had Montreal Bachanim, we had Russian Bachanim. I mean Pasha, they're already here for years, but upon him, it was obvious that they were Russian, from Russia. And it came in very helpful. We had about 10 Bachanim, I think we had our own minyan. And when we went to people, we wanted to convince them to put on film, we would immediately put up the Russian guy saying, here, he's coming from Russia, he had sacrificed for Torah mitzvahs. So this was basically a tool to get people to put on film. One of the people was one of the Bacharim that we had, maybe call them then, maybe it was Israeli, Naftali Greenwald. He was one of the Bacharim that we had then in the group. We had, as mentioned, all different nationalities. It wasn't intentional, it just happened to be that this was a selection, a group, and we went to another city, to Monsey, as mentioned. We met a Skverer Chassid. The Skverer Chassid said, it was towards the evening, he says, guys, you have to be careful. There's a lot of Chevre coming now, Junge Chevre, and Poshet, and they were disappearing. So we told them, we're looking for these guys. We're looking for them. Okay, put on film with 15 Chevra, because one person slept in other people, and put on film with 15 Chevra. Yeah. So upon him, this is a big atzlacha. We later wrote in the Duch to the Rebbe. This was a very special event. That summer, the Rebbe discussed the inyan of tankin. What is the inyan of a tank? What's the Rosh Tevis tank? And what does it mean in the inyanim of Miftzayim? So the Rebbe said, tank is a Rosh Tevis, Taris, Nezikin, Kotchen. These are the 3 different series of Mishnayos. Taris is in purity, Nezikin is damage, Kotchem is sacred matters. The Rebbe says the first thing is you go out to put on film with someone, it has to be Taris. Taris means you have to make sure that that person has no suspicion in his mind that you're coming for anything else besides putting on film. Not money, not uchur. So the Rebbe says this is the first thing. The second thing is nizikin. You start putting on film with him, you're starting to deal with the spiritual damage that he needs to correct, that he needs to help him out from his spiritual situation, his spiritual dilemma, and ultimately you connect him with Kodsha. Connect him with Kedusha. So the Rebbe says, whoever wants to feel that this was a joke, the Rebbe says, but this is based on a limit from the Baal Shem Tov, whatever a person sees or hears. The Rechaga, when the tanks were leaving every morning, the Rebbe once said when he came out from the car, the Rebbe says, these are tanks against assimilation. The Rebbe told us, Rabbi Krinsky, and in the Fabrengen, the Rebbe used it that not only on the defensive side, but also offensive side. Kibush Elam. So this is basically how the Rebbe then began of the Miftzayim, and the Rebbe then also explained the word Miftzah. It's like all hidden away in those siches, Pasha Shlach, Chulun, Lamadalit, wholesome and Reicher Zuma. The Rebbe said, what is the inyan of Miftzah? Miftzah, you have the letters Betzah, Beis Tzadik Ayin, and then you have the Beis Tzadik Ayin are the second letter of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The obvious. The Mem is mafil. It accomplishes with someone else. It's mafil. Digduk is accomplishing with somebody else. The Rebbe says this is the union of Miftzah. Melaveh, the Rebbe, the union of Tanken, the union of Miftzayim, was Mevayet all the inyonim, what they are and what they signify, partially connected with the others. So Kapalim, this was the beginning stage of the remember we were coming back once from the baseball game. We were by the baseball game. We saw a team. A team of they were playing. They had an audience. They had their fans. They had their participants. And we decided we'll put on film with people there. And then we came back.
Please mute.
We're driving. We see a silver car on our left. The Rebbe is coming back from there. We put on the speaker. The ganze Student. The Rebbe is sitting in the seat. The Rebbe looks up. Looks back down.
Please mute your phone.
We're trying to keep up with the Rebbe, which is impossible. Driving, it's impossible. Finally caught up on Rochester and Eastern Parkway, followed the Rebbe to some 70, it was Chamishas above. The music was blaring away, and the Rebbe walks out of the car, and then later we had a Fabrenga, Chamishas above, it was in 75. The Union of Chamishas above. Talking about Miftzayim, there's a story that Bocharim once met the Rebbetzin on Miftzayim. They had no idea who they're talking to. And they asked the Rebbetzin if she liked Shabbos candles. The Rebbetzin looks at them and asks them, why should I light Shabbos candles? They tell the Rebbetzin that the Lubavitch Rebbe came out with a call to light. The Rebbetzin asks them, do you do everything the Lubavitch Rebbe tells you to do? Akapanim, I don't know what they answered, whatever. Suddenly, a Mechutna mine, Levi Buket, he was across the street, he was like the overseer of the young Bacharim. The Rebbetzin saw there's someone there that might recognize her. She immediately said, Kinderlach, ich zünd Licht alle Freitag. I light candles every Friday. And she disappeared. This was another time that the Rebbetzin was in Manhattan, and the next day, Rabbi Yunik was looking to figure out who was in charge of the tank on this and the street in Manhattan. They're like different memunim. He found out who it was. He went over to him with a smile. He says, it was a job well done, which means he had regards from the Rebbetzin. So this is basically how the Rebbe would get information, and how the Rebbetzin would sometimes give a ha'orah to Chassidim also. Like the Rebbetzin once said, that there's certain inyanim that the Rebbe asks, everybody's available. But there's certain inyanim, more difficult inyanim, you don't have big lines that are ready to do it. So this is basically an insight the Rebbetzin is giving, although the Rebbetzin Bechal would never interpret the Rebbe's words. So clearly I'm just giving over Lashon, the Lashon of my husband. Of the Bechol there were certain ha'ores that she gave, and from these ha'ores, Chassidim learned lessons, Pashit in Avedas Hashem, in Aveda of Iskashrus, in Aveda of Menschlichkeit, which the Rebbetzin Pashit expressed a certain insight. So the Rebbe should help him that we should be Chassidim the way the Rebbe wants us to be, and our Kapalim, in addition, increase in the Yanim of Chassidim, in Chassidim Zainim. But Al Kapanim, we should add that since it's Yutas Kislev, so it's a new chayas, a new energy, we should use it, we should fulfill it. So Maisa that happened with a Chassid called Rabbi Lepler. The Rebbe told the story a few times. The Friedrich Rebbe told the story, and when the Friedrich Rebbe told the story, he didn't explain what was the point of it. It sounded a little humorous. There was a list of Chassidim who would receive the needs of Pesach, the Tzarchei HaPesach from the Tzemach Tzedek. A list, these people got it before Pesach, of course, Chareses, Mori, whatever it was. Rabbi Lepler was one of the Chassidim. He got it. He ate it. Comes before Pesach. He needs it. He needs it again. He needs the rest. He comes to Tzemach Tzedek checks. They gave him. How'd he guess? He ate it up, finished. So the Rebbe tells a beautiful lesson of it. One time when the Rebbe spoke about it, it was connected with a certain Mivtza Purim then. But here the Rebbe says the lesson like this. This Chassid got something from his Rebbe. He immediately internalized it. The energy that he got, he used it right away. He didn't wait for Pesach. When the Rebbe gave Lekach. Rabbi gave lekach, so somebody asked the Rebbe, if I'm going to eat the lekach, where's the bracha? The Rebbe says the ruchni stays on. So basically, the gashmis is a keli. Same things also. The Rebbe gave something. He gave him the keach for Yitzias Mitzrayim, for the seder, and b'meila he immediately applied it. Vaseish is just going to lay around. He needs to use it now. Vedas Hashem. I don't know what happened at the end. Tzemach Tzedek gave him again. It's hard to know. The Rebbe doesn't speak about it, but this is the way the Rebbe explains it. The Rebbe used this because it was once when he gave Shlachmanas, that they gave out on Mivtzoyim, and they saw people are eating it right away. So this was the explanation. They wrote to the Rebbe, what's the use if they're eating it a day before? So the Rebbe told that story. So Chassidim say that this is the connection. So b'chol eifu, the Maisa B'Peil is that since it's Yutas Kislev, we're getting new keiches. Mainly we have to digest it, we have to internalize it, become part of us. It's not something which is just laying there. The Rebbe says that the Eibishter did not create something in vain. And then the Rebbe adds in the later years, even sharper, that if a person does not use it, he causes that it was created in vain, chas v'sholem, or kavyochel. So Mela, this is basically an inyan that a person should know every day. There's new energy and there's Ma'ila B'Kedesh, which this is a keach that was given to every Yid. There's once a sikha from the Rebbe that the Rebbe said, as a Yid geht in gas, it is atzmus ein sof. And the Rebbe says, kavyochel, and the Rebbe says, unefsher ona kavyochel. I couldn't find the sikha, it could be maybe later they changed words around. I remember hearing it from the Rebbe. Kavyochel unefsher ona kavyochel, which means literally, chelik alekam emal mamash. And it's interesting, but in Tanya, you do chelik alekam emal mamash. People are asking, it's a posik in EU, chelik alekam emal. Okay, they'll go so far. Mamish, what's a mamish? The Shalah writes it. Shalah writes it. In the Pirushim Antanya, it's noted that the Shalah mentions it. And somebody also wrote to me privately about it, that the Shalah mentions the union of Mamash. And as it says in Tanya, Benigir Tanya, the Tanya is based on who? On the Pisvei, Svarim, and Pisefrim. Seifrim is the Maral Meprag, and after the Shalah also. And the Pisvarim, Rabbi Sai is the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid. So Maisa wants a Tanya that the Rebbe asked they should publish a Tanya in Prague. There's Rabbi Avram Yitzchak Lik should publish a Tanya in Prague. It was after Tishrei, I think in beginning of Mem Aleph, late 1980. He went to Prague, I think it was late 80. And he went there. He sends back a message to the Rebbe, they do not allow to print less than 20,000. economy, Geld. Well, he comes back to the Rebbe, should I do it? The Rebbe says, yeah. They printed a small Tanya, which is pocket size in plastic, brown plastic, a Praga Tanya. 10,000 they had here and in New York, and 10,000 they sent to Yisrael because it was like overflooding. And a lot of people managed to see that Tanya because it was circulating. He came back to the Rebbe with Tanyas, with samples, and the Rebbe told him, the Tanya has a connection with Prague for two reasons. One, that Mepi Seifrim means the Malkah Prague, and the Tanya is based on Mepi Seifrim scribes. The second inyan, the Rebbe says, that the first Tanya did not come on time. The Rebbe says, but this Tanya came on time. Came before you to Kislev. So this is a ma'aseh that I heard b'shatei then in the early 80s. I noted it then by me. Last year I heard a very geschmacker biur, a certain aspect in the story, nishkum biur, a fact of the story, detail which I didn't know. When they came to ask the Rebbe if they should print 20,000, the Rebbe said, I'll say it first in Yiddish, was kann ich tun? Ad de Marale de Balabas in Prague und azay villar. What can I do? The Maral owns Prague, he's the Balabas in Prague, and that's what he wants, it's his territory. Mela, 20, he wants 20,000, I'm 20,000. This is the other head, the way the Rebbe heard it, the Maral in Prague. It's, So upon him, this is basically, the Alter Rebbe is also from the Tzatzoyim of the Maral, he's the seventh generation from the Maral in Prague. So this is basically the inyan of printing, as the Rebbe says, the inyan of printing is something which accomplishes B'negiat Tanya, that it's something that takes over, it's kibush, and therefore they should also learn it. It should be Bevei Pnimiyah. If it would be L'Moshe Stam, Chassidus, print, and Fartik, Abgitam. Chassidus Chabad, the Rebbe says, no, you have to sit down a few people at least, B'shas Maisa, that printing it should be also learned. It should come down the Pnimiyas. This is the union of Chabad. Maisa talking about Chabad and other Tadas. It's told B'negiat to a Yid, his name was Rabbi Meisha Letversky Schneerson. He was a Yid who lived on Eastern Parkway. He was a very close descendant from the Alter Rebbe. He was about third or fourth generation Alter Rebbe. He passed away in the high 90s, in his high 90s, in 1958. So he goes, Mamish, Kamad Bashem, Tzemach Tzedek's time. So he once told the Rebbe, I have ksovim that are al derech, like the style of Chabad. You say, like, could be maybe it's Kopester of us because they think, so the Rebbe says, Vos darf man haben ksovim that are al derech Chassidus Chabad. We have Chassidus Chabad. We have Chassidus Chabad, but it's for al derech Chassidus Chabad. Go to the Rebbe, if you can go straight, where do you have to go with? This is the sheet of the Rebbe Bechlal. Now all the inyanim, you go directly to the point, v'chulu, and start getting zuchum and wasting, and then later coming to recognize v'chulu. Al derech zeh, when it came to the inyanim of printing, the Rebbe would encourage many people to print svarim. It was an inyan which was by the Rebbe, inyan shamaymi, that a sefer should be printed. There was a person once that he was sick. The Rebbe told him, make a resolution that you will print your next sefer, which is due to be printed. And Pasha, this was like a vessel to bring health to that person. One of the Chosher Rabbonim from earlier generation, that the Rebbe Pasha pressed him that he should do it and forced himself. And this was basically to use out the energy for that. Aderech told the story B'negiat of Shalom Balipska, from Bell Harbor, that he wasn't well once, mamish in a very bad situation, and Mitamol they wrote to the Rebbe, they called the Rebbe, the Rabbi Chodikov. Rabbi Chodikov got back on the phone and said he wants to talk to Shalom Balipska. He says, what's he talking? The man is like a cold blue, His mom is sakonis nefoshes, not shaykh to talk. Nay, I have to give something over to him. Chodikov is asking from the Rebbe. She puts the phone to his ears. Says that the Rebbe had a certain inyan, a certain shlichus that he has to accomplish, which means basically there's inyan of erotzi, there's inyan of shuv. And the Rebbe Pashit, giving that person certain shlichus, the inyan of, you have an inyan, we need you here. Mamela, the Rebbe brought him back down here, he woke up, and Baruch Hashem, he's alive with us today, and here with us today.
What
I don't know. He told that story in the Living Torah, in the here's my story. It could have been in the 80s, I think. In the 80s, could be. I don't know dates. I don't even know if it mentions date. But was a matter they could think. Ayeka, that's a person, yeah, that's basically the union of Ayeka. The union of Ayeka is that a person has to remember that, yes, too much of this, that. The Kudah is that he has a shlichus. Like somebody, a person once didn't come to Fabrenga. The Rebbe knew exactly who's there, who's not there. The Rebbe once asked by dollar someone, the later years, how come I didn't see you by Fabrenga already a few weeks? This is without an attendance sheet, without anything. The Rebbe, in the beginning of Fabrenga, the Rebbe would scan through the Elam. The first few minutes, but the first thing the Rebbe, like we saw, the Rebbe was like looking around. And you're talking here about lines of people, one in front of the other. And the Rebbe Pashut said, he x-rayed the whole thing. It was very, Asher Yeshne Pei, Asher Enenu Pei. There was one time, a person that didn't come, and the Rebbe asked him, where was he? So he told the Rebbe that he had fever. So the Rebbe says, how do you know you had fever? He says, I measured. So the Rebbe says, wer dir geheißen messen? Who asked you to measure? Which means that sometimes a person puts himself in a situation where he limits himself. So the Rebbe said, it's like saying, wer dir gedacht messen? You should have gone to the Fabrenga and Farti. Like the Rebbe said to someone else who was one sick. The Rebbe says, what does he have to lay a kalter in bed when he can let him come and warm up a man's chassidim? So, the Inyan of there's a Meister of Zalman Yaffa once, he came back to Yisrael. So he wrote to the Rebbe that they all got sick. They all got colds. So the Rebbe says, this is the impression you're writing to me from coming back from 770. He says, I would figure that when you write fakert, they all came back very feverishly involved, heated up in Yalim of Teiru Mitzvahs. Und da sagst du mir am meisten mit der Kaltkeit. The Inyan of a Kaltkeit. Which is basically, Chassidus it's Bechlal, not on record, the Inyan of Kaltkeit. Inyan of this is basically the same thing is in many different occasions that the Rebbe was like wondering, why did he put himself into such an Inyan? Why is he limiting himself when a person could actually jump out of it? Like the story you mentioned earlier, that a person came to the Rebbe and they were talking about a certain person who was not well and was constantly crying. The Rebbe says, why? Don't laugh a whole day. Which the pshat is not the Rebbe was making up a certain joke. It was basically a health therapy, which today they say it already for many years. They write that laughing is a healthy union, is a remedy. So Akopanim, and Al Pichsidis, it's union of Amtakas Dinim. Al Derech Bad Al Rebbe, when he was in jail, and they asked him questions, he smiled. The Rebbe says, what is the union of smiling? It's the union of being Mamtik Dinim, sweetening Dinim L'mayla, which is Al Derech, like it says in the Zayar. This the Rebbe used when it was the Muhammad of Yom Kippur. The Rebbe says, how could there be an union of dancing when there's a Muhammad going on in Eretz Yisrael? Yom Kippur. So the Rebbe said, but the Zayar says that when a person shows simcha here, the Mela, there's also simcha l'mayla. The Mela, all the inyanim are removed, all the limitations are removed. So this is what the Rebbe used then, 50 years ago. The Chol Eifim, the Rebbe says are helpful, as the Rebbe once said, the Lashon B'negia to the union of Geula, that it says, Stokos HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Yisrael Shapizram Bein HaUmas, that the Eibishter made a tzedakah with Yidden, that he spread them out amongst all other nations. What was the meaning of spreading out? That this is the way they'll be able to survive. If Chas v'Shalom one country is a misakona, the other one will be safe. So the Rebbe said, Allah Hashem ha'fabrengen. The Eibishter was Yetze Behidur with this mitzvah of tzedakah. And now he needs the union of Kibbutz Goliath. He needs the union of Poshet, Mekabes, Nitcha, Yisrael. And as the Rebbe says, the Lashon Benegia to the union of Geula, L'Artzeina Akdesha, Yerushalayim, Beis Hamikdash, and Keidesh HaKadosh. Chaim, Chaim. From the Rebbe, generally it's interesting, the calendar selling, whenever it was Vayeshev, so the Rebbe then, it was Tafshin Yudalet, Tafshin Chavdalet, Tovshin Lamed Dalet, 3 times. Vayeshev, the Rebbe spoke about a Sikha from the Friedrich Rebbe from Tovshin Dalet, which is 80 years ago. And the Sikha that explains that the Rebbe Rashab said the connection of Yutas Kislev with Vayishlach and Vayeshev is that Vayishlach is basically the union of Avidas HaBirurim, dealing with the union of Esau, dealing with the union of Birurim, and the Melaveh, he deals with it in order to do the Shivim, the Shiva Malachim, the 7 kings, and then the Parsha finishes Esau Hu Edom, which is basically in a negative sense. But when we look at the overall, so the Rebbe Rashab says, the Rebbe explains, what's the Vayishlach? Vayishlach has a few pirushim. Vayishlach means that it's an inyan dealing with Birurim, but then there's Vayishlach, the inyan that in the Birurim Guf is accomplishing Hafatzas HaMayonis Chutza. Vayishlach, he's sending out to somewhere else. And this is also, when we think about the Parsha, we see Parsha that this is the Tkufa of Yutas Kislev, the Tkufa of Chassidus Bechlal, of the Rabbi. That on one hand, there's the union of Golus Edom, which this is the Golus that the Rabbeim, where the Rabbeim lived. And together with that, it says, that finally, eventually, is V'hoisal Hashem Amlucha B'digula. So you have the two extremes. On one hand, Meredvig Esau, and all the negative inyanim. Then mit amol bezinyan adore al deni seira. Rashi says V'hoisal Hashem Amlucha. And this is, and it's interesting because when we look in the Rashi, then Rashi says also the Lashon that if they cannot keep up with the pace of Esau, barutfokum yemechad, that if in one day they can all collapse, the young children, and can't keep up. So Rashi says the Lashon Keil Dedi Defik. The Keil Dedi Defik is basically a Sederis that comes Mamaila. Zakman that, but they're not Kelim yet for it. Al-Taf, Olis Alai, they're young, B'chulam. So therefore Yanka said he needs more time, it should come down in a Pnimis, which this is also the difference between the Ushpizin. Yankiv Avinu is the Ushpiz with the Alter Rebbe, as the Rebbe mentioned it many times. And the union of the Alter Rebbe is that it has to come down Beifim Pnimi. As it's mentioned that Be'em is the Alter Rebbe, the Baditcher said the Be'em is the Alter Rebbe could have mamish, he could have destroyed Peterburg. But he wanted it should go Derech HaTeva, it should go Beifim Pnimi. And the same thing Benegia, Al Derazeh Benegia to Yankiv was the same thing, that it's basically the union of Beifim Pnimi. The children are not ready yet, they're not prepared. So I'll call upon him, this is the union of Vayishlach. Then comes Vayeshev, that finally he sets up, he settles down, Be'eretz Meguri Yoviv, with the more coming out of the whole union of Avidas HaBirurim, which is also connected, I think, with the union of Geula. As we see in the Sichas from these two Parshas, as the Rebbe explains the two Parshas, one in contrast to another, but Al-Kopanim, together with the union of Birurim, we have the union of Geula. And this is what the Rabbi and Bechal stress, that the union of the Golus is connected with the Birurim, and the Alter Rebbe in Teireh, in Parsha Vayeshev, says that there's Birurim that need to be accomplished, and Yugmeru b'mheira v'yameinu amen, as he concludes one of the Maimorim in Teireh Vayeshev. So the Rebbe is helpful, as the Rebbe said, we already finished Avedis HaBirurim, that we should already have the union of Kabbalah, Pnei, Mashiach. The Rebbe should lead us to Artzeinak, Beis Yerushalayim, Beis HaMikdash, and Keidesh HaKadosh.
Amen.
Those that have to make a bracha achreina, Mr. Nicht vergessen, a bracha achreina. Maybe the batteries will run out.